Richard Lane, and I'm a professor of psychiatry at the University of Arizona, and I'm one of the guest editors of the special issue of NeuroImage on brain-body medicine. Why do we do this special issue? Well, we've known for decades that emotion and stress have a definable effect on health outcomes, but the mechanisms by which emotion and stress have these health effects are not really known. The brain must play a role, and until recently we haven't had the technology to really pursue that, but now we do, and there are a lot of important, exciting findings that are reported in this special issue in the area of autonomic, endocrine, and immune function, as well as end organ functions such as cardiovascular, pulmonary, gastrointestinal, etc., and as well as interventions. And we're really defining the neural basis for these influences of mind on the body.
Hi, I'm Tor Wager, professor of psychology at Columbia University. And one of the reasons I really wanted to do this special issue on brain-body medicine is because I believe that the brain has important influences on the body and on health in certain areas. And I believe that we can start to now understand the mechanisms by which the brain governs the body. I think there are two camps of people. One camp believes that the brain and the mind are all important and completely determine health outcomes. And the other camp believes that the brain isn't important at all, and that disease processes are purely physical and should only be studied in the body. And I think this is the right time to begin to understand the mechanisms of brain activity, how thoughts and beliefs and emotions are translated into physiological changes in the body that are relevant for health. I think that's central to the mission of brain-body medicine.
As Tor said, there's this disparity, in these different camps, and unfortunately, mainstream medicine, physicians in practice typically don't think of these psychological and social factors as really relevant to everyday health care, and by defining the mechanisms that really may influence how medicine is practiced. The special issue has a total of 40 articles, and the topics are quite varied. But nevertheless, there was a remarkable convergence of findings in different areas. For example, with regard to autonomic regulation, endocrine function, immune variables, as well as gastrointestinal function, asthma, and cardiovascular contexts such as coronary artery disease. We found that there was this remarkable convergence of findings involving the medial prefrontal cortex and brainstem areas. This corresponds to known neuroanatomy, but what these functional imaging studies really represent is really bringing it to life in terms of the actual context in which this really happens in normal physiology as well as disease contexts.
I think neuroanatomical systems for regulation of the body have been pretty well described in animals and heavily studied over many years. That includes these systems that Richard mentioned that connect the medial prefrontal cortex, the brainstem, and the autonomic, endocrine, and immune systems, among others. And what's interesting about the special issue is that it highlights that there's a number of findings that relate to all of these areas, autonomic, endocrine, and immune, that show these systems becoming activated in humans. And this, I think, has promise for really providing some way of converging evidence between human and animal models.
We're also, in addition to those basic mechanisms, also studying them in the context of certain disease contexts, such as asthma, coronary artery disease, functional GI disorders, in the case of bladder control. We're studying end organs as well as these mediating variables as well as the brain. And it's by studying these mechanisms that all these different levels, it will be possible to really, really understand how it is, what the mechanisms are by which the mind influences the body and vice versa.
I think that people have a hard time believing things or accepting things unless we understand the mechanisms. And I think this direction, using neuroimaging and related converging methodologies, lets us, really to a degree that hasn't before been possible, start to examine the mechanisms of brain-body interaction. And I think that that has real promise for helping to bring the study of the brain into evidence-based medicine. So that's one thing I'm really excited about.
Right. And by delineating these mechanisms, we'll be able to then help substantiate which of these previously observed associations about mind and body really do have definable mechanisms and which don't, so that we think that the overall strength of the science will be improved.